Since this is our first class of a new course, I'd like to clarify the Asian Classics Institute course teaching policy and my recommendations for how you can get the most out of this course. Asian Classics Institute curriculum is material that Geshe Michael Roach presented back in the 1990s to a group of interested people in New York City. And it was the philosophical principles of Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism taught in such a way that we could learn the principles to use them to guide our life choices in order to bring about a greater amount of success and happiness. And it was never intended to make Buddhists out of people. The tradition is called Buddhist religion. The philosophy is more universal. And although there is a way of formally declaring oneself a Buddhist if they wish, there's no need to do so, and don't feel any pressure to do so. That rather these principles can be applied to our way of lives, no matter what religious background that we have. People I've shared with have said to me, as a result of studying the ACI, I am a better Christian. I am a better Jewish person because of what they've come to know. If one gets inspired and wants to become a card-carrying Buddhist, there's a ceremony through which we do that. And, you know, my husband and I have been given permission to do that for people. We haven't done it in a long time. So there are rituals involved, there are prayers involved that I use to start and close class that are implying that we are all Buddhists. But as you hear those prayers, or even if sometime you decide to use those prayers yourself, understand that you are declaring yourself to a philosophical way of life, a principle, not declaring yourself as a Buddhist if you don't want to be a Buddhist, right? So I'm supposed to make that clear at the beginning of a course. Then, secondly, these courses were designed in such a way to match the institutional educational process of learning, which in the West is you take a class, you read readings, you do homeworks and assignments, and you have a final exam. So Geshe Michael followed that same model because it also gives us structure to receive the material, review the material, review the most important part of the material, and then hopefully increase the imprint that allows us to use the material in life. So I'm all about completion, helping people complete things they start, because in this tradition that the completion is a really important piece. So I really, really, really encourage you to come to class. After the class, read the reading, Do the homework from the reading, from your notes. Ask each other questions if you want. Finish the homework, then pull out the answer key and compare your answers to the answer key and mark your own papers. So if you have to improve your answer a little bit, mark off half or 1 point. If you leave a whole question blank, mark off 5 points. But otherwise, be really kind to yourself when you're marking your papers. For homework, really, we can all be getting 95s and above. Then study your homework, put it away, take your quiz from memory, and then pull out the answer key and check your quiz and give it a score as well. Each class also has a meditation assignment. What that means is it'll give you a topic of consideration and commit yourself to doing at least one contemplation of that topic of consideration. I think it says 5 or 10 minutes. And then write it down somewhere so you have the date and time that you did that contemplation. It does not have to be formal meditation. Just set aside time to think about the topic deeply. The 11th class of each course is a review class. We take out the final exam and we go through every question and give you the answers. In fact, you teach me. That way you know exactly what's going to be on your final exam. Then you study, put your books away, take your final exam, and then our teacher assistant person will help us arrange a system where you swap your finals with a co-student and you'll grade each other's papers. And in the end, we'll have a date that we agree upon to submit all our homework and quiz grades, our final exam grades, and our meditation dates and times. And we'll send that off to the dean of ACI, and she will send you an electronic certificate of completion. Right? So that whole thing takes us a couple of months to complete. And then we take a little time off and we go on to the next course if you're interested. So I really encourage you not to fall behind on your homeworks and quizzes. It's just too easy to get overwhelmed, and they really are not difficult at all. Okay. Okay, so all of that said, now we'll start class in the usual way. And the way we do that is, let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now I invite you to bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. Whoever that may be, see them. Come and be right there before you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning these principles about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And maybe that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to that precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know. What we need to learn yet. What we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach me that. Show me that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of a perfect world that they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. Okay. This particular course that we're starting is the first in a 3-part series that's studying a book that was created. The material was first written somewhere in the 700s AD in India. It's called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It was originally written in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit's Bodhisattva Charya Avatara. I'll get back to it later. It's a guidebook of how to change our hearts from being the self-involved creatures that we seem to be into a being who perceives themselves so exquisitely differently that you experience yourself as that being made of love, compassion, and wisdom, right? The ideal we have in front of us. They're the one who's teaching us, not me. I'm being their vessel for you. And this tradition teaches us that they are an example of the highest evolution of what our consciousness can achieve. We can learn this material and be inspired by it, and for whatever reason decide, nice to understand, but I can't do it. And that's fine. We can also learn the material and be inspired and then try it on for size. And anywhere along the way, we are always completely free to decide, I want to use it some more, or no, I don't want to. None of this tradition says that you are obligated to use it. And so they always start out with like advertising what they have to share with us, telling us the benefits and pointing out, trying to enthuse us so that we're interested enough. You're already interested. Here you are. Thank you very much. When in this tradition, we are trying to get people enthused, to me, it's always a little bit backwards, because what we point out is how our world is so broken that every happiness we try to get even if we get it, it ends. We end up upset in some way. At the very least, we want more of it, and you have to do stuff to get it. We're constantly discontent, wanting for more. Like it's a big downer, that the start of a Buddhist class. Everything goes wrong in this life. Even when it seems to be going right, just wait. It's going to end. And we wouldn't be here if we haven't all had some amount of that experience to recognize it's like there's something wrong with this picture. Isn't there a way that I can be truly effective in my world to help myself get a little bit of happiness that will last? And in our ordinary way of perceiving our world, understanding its existence, and interacting with others, it is impossible to get the happiness that is our birthright. The very fact of being alive means we should be able to be happy. But there's something wrong with how we go about trying to get happy that causes the happiness to not come to us or to end when it does come. Once we understand that process, that whole system becomes actually a little more tolerable, because it's like, if I quit expecting for the happiness of triple berry pie to last forever, then I won't be upset when it doesn't. But these teachings are not about being able to stay calm when life falls apart. It's not about that. It'll be a nice side effect. But these teachings are about how to stop making the causes that are the result of which are life falling apart. Everything we experience is a result of something. That's true even in worldly life. Any experience is a result of a cause. Ordinarily, we say, oh, car started because I turned the key. And the car had a battery, and it had the gas, and it had all that other stuff. But turning the key started the car. That is valid, but it's not the actual cause for starting the car. And how do we know? Because one day you put the key in and turn it, and the car doesn't start. If turning the key was the real cause, it would have to work every single time, because that's what cause-result relationship means. Does that make sense? It's simple logic. Why am I going there? Because there are causes for the car to start, of which turning the key is a factor, but it's not the real cause. If we could understand what the real cause for starting the car was, and we made those causes, then the car would never not start, no matter what we did to start it. In the same vein, any unpleasant thing that happens in life is a result of some cause, not the worldly cause that we're blaming. Oh, they got a new boss. The new boss doesn't like me. Because they don't like me, they demoted me. That new boss, they're the cause of my problem. Valid, that was the experience. But all of that experience is actually coming from some other kind of cause that we don't even know to look for, to relate to. when we understand the actual causes for the results that we want, we set about to make the causes, not setting about to make the results. We make the causes, feed the causes, and let the results grow just like we plant a garden. You put the tomato seeds in February, you water them. By May, you've got tomato blossoms. By June and July, you've got tomatoes. In February, you don't sit there going, I'm making tomatoes. You just plant and water. This text, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, is a text that's all about learning how to do that in order to create a world where everybody knows how to do that. And the key factor in knowing how to do that is in helping somebody else plant their tomato seeds and water their tomato seeds so that they get tomatoes. You don't even plant your own tomato seeds, because helping the other plant theirs is planting yours. And everybody ends up with all the tomatoes you could ever want. There's this gap period. I've helped them plant tomatoes for years, and I don't have anybody's tomatoes yet. What's going on? This time gap. What do we do while we're in the time gap? Help others plant tomatoes. Do you see? So initially we hear it and go, well, I don't know if I can really do that, right? I really do need my own tomatoes, please. This text helps us understand why the time gap is so long, how to shorten it, how to interact with our day-to-day life with this different attitude. The actual things we do are not any different than ordinary human life. These instructions won't say, give up your job, give up your family, go live in a cave. It may sound like they're saying that, but they're not saying that. This whole way of being in our world is all an attitude shift in us that shifts us from this, going through our day like this, to going through our day like this. And it isn't something we can just turn on like a light bulb. We grow into it. And that's what these next 3 courses of Asian Classics Institute are designed to help us be able to do. These 3 courses of study of this text called Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. In this shift in attitude, there's 2 aspects of ourselves that we will be cultivating a change. The physical aspect of ourselves and the mental aspect of ourselves. So we are made up of a physical body, here's this one, and they call it a mental body, our mind, meaning our body and our mind. When we think mind, we're not limited to intellect or the thought words or the ability to think. What we're talking about when we say mind is this awareness, being aware. Like the light bulb is on, there's life inside this thing. That awareness is I want to say separate, but it's not actually accurate. It's not limited to this physical body. The physical body does not make the mind. Science says so. Science says the brain and all the stuff that the brain does, somehow that gets experienced as consciousness. And so the mind, the consciousness depends upon the brain. And when the brain dies, the mind stops because it's dependent on the brain. This tradition says that's ridiculous. This tradition says that's like saying you have a horse and you have a rider and the horse drops dead. Does that mean the rider drops dead? Of course not. The mind has a separate existence from the body. Are they inexorably tagged together? Absolutely. And we'll see why, over the course of our study. When we get a glimpse of understanding that this consciousness that's going on from moment to moment doesn't necessarily stop when the body stops, we would naturally wonder, well, then what happens next? If this body stops and the mind goes on, where does it go? What happens next? And in previous ACI courses, we've learned, some explanation of that process that we won't go into here. The point at this section is, in order for our guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life material to be useful, we want to consider the fact that the mind goes on after the end of the body, which means that for this mind to have a first moment in this body, it had to have been in existence before the first moment of this body, all right? So that means this mind has had lifetimes before, and that this mind will have lifetimes afterward. And then our question would be, what were they like? How assured am I that my next life will be anywhere close to this one, human, with my needs met, with my faculties intact, in a world where there is the Buddhist tradition taught in such a way that I, as a Westerner, can relate to. It's all quite extraordinary for us to even be here with this material. Is there any guarantee that that's what will come next? And, it's a long exploration and debate. And of course, there's no guarantee that we'll have created enough of those causes that I was talking about to create another life like this one. I'm using it up moment by moment. The way I interact with those moment by moments are planting new imprints. Any one of those new imprints can be the generating factor for my next reality at the end of this one. So my task, should I accept it, would be, I want to stop interacting with my world in a way that could make an imprint that could color a future life into something ugly, something awful. And I want to make as many imprints in my mind as I can, any one of which could color another human life in the Dharma, right, fed and capable, so that I can continue my path towards becoming this being made of love, compassion, and wisdom. So the whole idea is learning how it is that we create the causes for the results that we want in the future. And then we just set about to create those causes. Shouldn't be so hard, right? It really isn't hard. Okay. So to understand all of that, there are these two principles in Buddhism called emptiness and karma. And those are two words that need to be very precisely defined and understood in order to be useful for this outcome that I've been speaking towards. There are thousands of pages of commentaries describing what's meant by emptiness or no self and karma in all the literatures of the world, both Buddhist and non-Buddhist. And along comes Geshe Michael years ago, and he gives such a simple explanation that it's like all those thousands of pages of explanation. It's like, great, thank you very much. I'm going to use this one because it's so clear. And it's called the pen thing. And my guess is everybody has heard it multiple times. But let's do it again. Pretend you've never heard it before. Because when we do, we get a little piece, a little brighter than maybe we had before, right? So are you willing to play with me on the pen explanation? Has everybody heard it before? Yeah, you know the pen. Okay. So let's do it. Okay. See this thing? Watch right here. Yeah.
Pen.
See?
Yes.
Yeah. Right? It's a pen. Do we agree? We see a pen. I'm going to prove it to you. It's a pen. Watch. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Huh. Do you see? Hello. Doesn't that prove that this thing is a pen? Because I just wrote with it. Writing is what pens do, right? Okay. So suppose a dog comes in and I offer this object to the dog. What's the dog gonna do with it? Right? They're gonna chew on it. So now think, what does that tell us about the emptiness? Wait, sorry. What does that tell us about the identity of this object? Where is it coming from? If you and I can see it and say pen, and the dog can see it and say chew toy, and the fly can land on it and say landing pad, okay? What does it say about where the identity is coming from? Just logically. It has to be coming to some extent from the experiencer. Do we agree? To what extent it's coming from the experiencer is a long story. Ultimately, ultimately all of it. But don't even have to go there. So now the next question is, well, then why? Why do we have the results pen and dog has the result chew toy? If it's coming from our mind, why can't I decide, oh, I want this to be a stick of gold. I wouldn't be able to hold it, right? Why can't I just wish it into something else if it's coming from my mind? The identity pen is somehow forced on us, isn't it? I didn't, we said, oh, pen. We didn't say, what do I want that to be? Oh, rose. So yes, it's our perception, but it's not by choice. Yes, it's the dog's perception, but not by their choice either. There's some factor that's forcing us to perceive it in the way that we do. When our mind forces pen, it also forces pens are writing instruments. And so that's what pens do. So even the function of the object is coming from our mind. Recognizing the fact that the identity of this object is not actually in it is to recognize the fact of the emptiness of this object. Many traditions call it the no self of the object. The emptiness of the object is the fact that it has no identity of its own. The identity that is here is coming from the mind of the observer, and that's its appearing nature, which is forced on us by this as a ripening result. Remember the planting the tomatoes? To see this as a pen is, in that analogy, a tomato, a ripening result. Everything that we experience is a ripening result. Once results happen, they're done. How I interact with the result makes the cause for some new result. So to understand the emptiness of any object is to understand that the way we perceive the object is a result of some cause. And that cause had to have been some way in which I influenced my own mind stream, my own consciousness, in a way that has now brought about the result, me having pen to use to make this explanation. So now the question is, well, how do I make those causes? How do I make the imprints on this mind that are going to be the results that I experience in my future? As we perceive ourselves interacting with other, there's a me side of this awareness that's always there. It's always aware of what's going on. And that me side is perceiving itself interacting with other. And that interaction with other imprints this mind stream. It's planting the seed in the mind stream. So for instance, this me has my pen, my favorite pen. And someone says, oh, does anyone have a pen I can use? And this me goes, oh, yes, here. It's watching itself as it lets go of the pen. Yay, I helped that person. They use the pen. Time goes by. This one, oh my gosh, I need a pen. Does anybody have a pen? And then look what happens. Ta-da! Oh, thank you, right? As many pens as I need, actually, multiple pens. because the imprint was made when I shared that need with the other person. This give and take is happening constantly. As we interact with others, we are experiencing results of past interactions, and we are acting in ways that plant new. You're getting a glimpse of how we, in fact, have total power to create. Where we fail is that we're not in the habit of being aware of planting as we interact. Our awareness is in react mode, right? They are doing that to me. That is happening at me. I need to protect me, get me what me wants. It's a misperception that we've always had. But it is a misperception. It's a big mistake. And we can stop making the mistake and train ourselves to function in this other mode of respond instead of react. We can be in plant mode as we interact with the others of our day, whether the others are the dog, the people, the dishes, the toothbrush, any other is an arena in which we are planting seeds in our minds that will be our future experience. So that said, the purpose of this whole book that we are studying is to help us learn this method, learn what blocks us from being successful in our habit shift, learn how to create the seeds for successful habit shift, and then learn what behaviors to cultivate, what seeds to learn to plant, so that we can change the results that we're experiencing. The key is, however, that each of us is responsible for making this change ourselves. There's no one who can get into our mental seeds that we make and change them for us. This process of planting mental seeds and the ripening of seeds, I forgot to mention, that's what's meant by karma. So in this pen example, the appearance of the pen is our karma ripening. The fact that it's my karma that makes this pen, is this marriage of karma and emptiness. Understanding that, we apply it to any kind of distress that we see in our world. Any distress I see is unique to me, is a ripening result of some way in which I created that. Any goodness I see in my world is unique to me. It's a result of some way in which I helped somebody else with some kindness. We have lots of ugliness in our world right now, but we have more goodness, right? We have communication like this across borders. I mean, come on. If I could only give this in person, you would all have to be in my living room right now. That would be impossible. I mean, it's extraordinary. My husband and I just got back from Romania and Armenia. And within the course of 25 hours, we went from reality of Armenia to reality of Tucson. How miraculous is that? I mean, truly, we have created miraculous worlds. And let's keep focusing on that. Like, help me. So that we can create more and more and more. The key is we are all personally responsible. And that takes really strong shoulders. And not everybody can hear that message and not run away screaming. Most of the world's religions say, no, that's too big for you. We have these other beings, right, who help us, who carry the load, who ultimately carry the load. In this tradition, it's like, that's nice, but ultimately it won't help me in the long run. So when we understand this process, we can feel really empowered, so that this idea of it's all my personal responsibility is like, yes, let me at it, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I can't possibly do it. So if you're starting to feel, oh my gosh, I can't possibly do it, please reach out, because it means my explanation is going wrong. We are empowered to change ourselves and change our world, but we have to do it through our own personal change. And we have the guidebook to do so. Hooray. Okay, so let's take a break. We take 5 minutes or so to get refreshed, and then we'll start into the actual text. Unless you want to run away, then nice to meet you. See you next time. Please don't run away. All right, I'm going to pause the recording here. Pause. Okay, I need my screen share here. Make us bigger. All right. I don't have everybody on with me, but I have most of you. Okay. So as I said, we're studying from the Tibetan Mahayana Buddhist Gelugpa tradition, very specific. The area that was identified as Tibet is now called West China, and they have a language now called West Chinese language. And people are not learning to read it anymore, and some still speak it, but the spoken language is apparently quite different than the written language. And yet, when Buddhism originated in India, and then at some point the Tibetans met it, and they brought it to Tibet, all of the texts that were available at the time, which were not many compared to what there had been apparently. And the Tibetans were very careful to translate from the Sanskrit into Tibetan. So according to Geshe-la, the biggest, most complete collection of Buddhist teachings are now in the Tibetan language, and they are scattered through different monastic libraries and hidden places. And some of it went into Mongolia, and from Mongolia actually ended up in St. Petersburg Library. And so these collections are everywhere. in Tibetan, but we have fewer and fewer people who can read them. So technically it's being lost if we don't keep the language alive enough so that people can translate them, which is Geshe Michael's Asian Legacy Library project and the translator project, of course. So we do our part by planting the seeds in our mind to hear Tibetan read by hearing ourselves say it. And that's why I write it out in the version of translation that's readable to Westerners. And just to plant seeds to help protect the Tibetan language. I give you vocabulary. You don't need it to do your assignments. You don't need to do anything else with it, but read it and say it out loud. Hear yourself say it to plant the seeds for the translator project to be successful. All right, deal? Okay, so the text that we are studying from is called in Tibetan, Changchub Sempe Chupa Lang Jupa. This N with the parentheses, it's a prenasal sound that doesn't have a letter. Lang Jupa, can you hear it? Lang Jupa. So Changchub Sempe Chupa Lang Jupa, right? Hear yourself say it. You can stay unmuted. I don't need to hear it. Got it? In Sanskrit, it's Bodhisattva Charyavatara. In Sanskrit, when you have two separate words, one that ends with A and the other that starts with A, you smash them both together and make the A long. So Charyavatara sounds like one word. Bodhisattva is the word that means the Buddhahood warrior. Bodhi means Buddha mind. Buddha mind means a mind that's totally awakened. What that means is an awareness of that all appearances and the empty nature of all appearances simultaneously, including time. So what that means is a mind experiencing itself as omniscient. An omniscient mind perceives itself as this totally pure, ultimately happy being in a paradise world. All the other beings in their paradise world are also ultimately happy. And their omniscient mind perceives those others the way they perceive themselves as well. Some of them perceive themselves as totally enlightened beings. Some of them don't. Those that don't perceive themselves as totally enlightened beings perceive themselves as suffering beings. And the omniscient beings, love and compassion that made them omniscient, automatically, spontaneously goes to those beings, manifests, appears to those beings in ways to help those beings wake up. Bodhi, that is what Bodhi means. Sattva means warrior. So when we put Bodhisattva together, it means a person who has decided, I want to create my own Bodhi mind. I want to become Buddha. And I am hell-bent on doing that. That's the warrior part. Bodhisattva. It means a person who has decided they want to become totally enlightened for the sake of all others. Technically, that's a Mahayana Bodhisattva. In the Tibetan language, that's Changchub Sempe. Changchub is the word, we'll learn the details another day, for this Buddha mind, the fully awakened mind. Sempe is the warrior, the one who wants to create their own mind into that. Charya is the activities for doing so. And avatara is entering into that way of life. In the Tibetan, the chupa is the activities we do, and the long jupa is entering in, making this pledge to enter into this way of life of creating our own being into a Buddha for the benefit of all others, called Bodhisattva. So all together, this gets translated into the title of our text is the guide, the Langjupa. Sorry, I'm blanking out. The guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. The name of our text. It has a nickname. The nickname in Tibetan is Chunjuk. Chunjuk means how to act. So, if you're hanging out with some people and they go, oh, what are you studying? You can say, I'm studying Chunjuk. And they're supposed to know, oh, you're studying Guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. I've never had the occasion to do that, but now we know. So where did this text come from? It was not written by Shakyamuni Buddha. This was written by a man named Gyaltse Shihuala. Gyaltse Shihuala is his name in Tibetan. He was not Tibetan. He's an Indian man. His name in Sanskrit is Bodhisattva Shantideva. And we tend to always call him Master Shantideva. We use his Sanskrit name. But his Tibetan name is Gyaltse Shihuala. Here's the word Bodhisattva. Before we called it Changchub Sempe. Here we have the word Gyaltse. Gyaltse is another way of translating the Sanskrit Bodhisattva. Gyaltse means child of the Buddhas. So if we've taken our Bodhisattva vows, or when we do, there's a verse that we say afterwards that says, now I've become a child of the Buddhas. Meaning in that ceremony of establishing ourselves on our Bodhisattva path, the Buddha's now like, oh, I see you. They've always seen us. But now it's like we move in with them or something. We become a child of the Buddhas. That's Gyaltse. In Sanskrit, the Shanti means peace. Right? If you're in the yoga tradition, you end your sessions with Om Shanti, 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 right? It means peace, 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 peace. And Deva means angel or, highly realized being. In Tibetan, Shihwa is the peace and Hla means angel. But now in other religions, angel means a messenger from God. They are not themselves a fully realized being. They're pretty special, right? But they're messengers. In this tradition, when we use the term Deva and Hla, we are meaning a fully enlightened being in and of themselves. And so Devas and Hlas almost always are Buddhas themselves, not Shakyamuni Buddha, right? Different Buddhas. So when we use the term angel in the Geshe Michael realm of people, we're talking, Buddhas. Outside of our tradition, I suggest we be careful using that term angel, because other people will hear it and they'll think you mean a messenger from God, right? So just be a little bit careful there. So Gyaltse Shiwala, born in the 700s in India. We don't know a whole lot about him. What we do know is that he lived in the northern area of in India. He was born to the king and queen. So in those days, you know, the king of the area owned everything and everybody. They were completely in charge of everything. His dad, the king, was a good king. Apparently everybody liked him. The mom is said to be an emanation of Vajrayogini, and I have no idea how they know that. But between the two of them, they have this child, and he's a pretty extraordinary little baby as it goes. And by the time he's 6 years old, he's already met his secret Dharma teacher. And that Dharma teacher has taught him the practices to meet Manjushri. So Lord Manjushri in the secret teachings is a fully enlightened being whose specialty is teaching wisdom. The wisdom of the fact that the object has no nature of its own, that its emptiness is what allows it to be what any being perceives. Manjushri, the being who was Manjushri before he became Manjushri, said, when I get enlightened, I'm going to specialize in teaching people wisdom, how to live by that wisdom. And so that's what Manjushri does. And here's this 6-year-old kid interacting with Manjushri to learn how to stop creating more suffering and selfishness and how to create a pure and perfect world. So he's growing up and dad dies. And all the people in the kingdom beg the prince to become king. They all love him. They want him to be king. He doesn't want to be king, but he doesn't want to upset them. He doesn't want to disappoint them. He doesn't want to disappoint his mom. So he agrees, okay, I'll be king. So along comes the night before the coronation, and he has this dream. And in the dream, Manjushri's sitting on the king's throne. And Manjushri says to the young man, you can't sit on your teacher's throne. And he takes that to mean that he shouldn't become king. So he runs away. And he runs to Nalanda Monastery. And he checks in there and takes ordination. So you have to be 20 years old to take ordination. So he must have been at least 20. And he takes ordination and he studies. Well, you know, he already knows it all. He's been studying from Manjushri, but they don't know that. They see this new guy. So they put him through his studies, and he studies hard, but he spends most of his time in his room. And he doesn't partake in the rituals, and he doesn't, you know, do his dish duty. And he gets a bad reputation, actually, for doing nothing but eating, sleeping, and pooping. And he gets this nickname in Sanskrit, Busuku, which means those 3 thoughts. All that's on your mind is eating, sleeping, and pooping, is what Busuku means. In Tibetan, it's Dushe Sumbawa. So please say Dushe Sumbawa. It's derogatory. They called him that. They didn't think very highly of him, the other monastics. And they felt that he was giving a bad reputation to the monastery. And that bad reputation would affect the supporters, and it would, you know, reduce the amount of support supporters would give. And so his co-monks wanted him out. But, you can't just kick somebody out. So they decided they would set up a situation where he would embarrass himself, so then he would leave. Awful story, isn't it? Come on, you guys are monks. So they go to him one day and they say, everybody's supposed to take a turn leading the recitation of the prayers. Your turn's coming up, so you have to do it. And he goes, no, I'm not capable. I can't do it. He refused. They asked 3 times. He finally said, well, okay. So the monks involved, they go, great. So they built a throne for him to sit on, but they made the throne too tall to just step onto. And they conveniently failed to build stairs to it. So they anticipate that he'll get to the throne and not be able to get onto it and have to sit on the floor to give his talk, right? They're like setting him up for failure. Then they go further and they contact all their big benefactors and they say, we're having a special presentation, you must come. So on the day, the big benefactors are there. These naughty monks are all there. They're all there. And in comes Shantideva. He walks down the hallway. He makes his prostrations to the altar, which indicates he's being a messenger, right, from the Buddhas. And the ones in charge are like giggling and, waiting to see what he does next. And the next thing you know, he's sitting on the throne. And they go like, what? And he says, I know I'm supposed to recite the prayers, but maybe you'd like to hear something new. And they're all going, great, now he'll really embarrass himself. So he says, well, I know this thing. And he starts reciting this exquisite poetry that is this text, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And he's going through it chapter by chapter. And, the audience is enthralled. And these naughty monks are like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And as he gets to the latter chapters, there's 10 chapters as it turns out. The 9th chapter is the chapter on wisdom. They say his mind and the sky were competing for space. It's like it was so lofty that for the audience to follow it, there were only a few that could understand what he was saying. And at some point, his mind became so lofty that his body was elevating. And as he continued to teach, he got higher and higher in the sky. And only some of the monks there could hear, right? Had minds vast enough to continue to hear. And in the end, most of the audience didn't even hear a 10th chapter, but the ones that were able to follow, not physically, but consciously follow, said, no, there's a 10th chapter, a chapter on dedication, and it was exquisite. So by the time he finishes, he's just disappeared. And the monks left behind are going, egads, we made a big mistake. And they put their heads together to try to piece together what just happened. And they decide somebody's got to go find this guy and bring him back. He's a master. So they send a search party out. They find him in the south of India somewhere. And they beg him to come back. They apologize, right? They make offerings. And he goes, no way. I'm not coming back. There are beings who need me. He said, but there's a written copy of that book and the 2 others that I mentioned in the rafters in my room. You are welcome to them. Here, I'll teach you, the other 2 as well. Take them, use them, go away. I have other things to do. And he spent the rest of his life going to different places where there was conflict, helping people. where there were teachers teaching the scriptures incorrectly and debating with them to help clean it up. He didn't land in any one place. And I don't know about what happened in the end, right? Is there an in the end for an enlightened being? Maybe he's still out there doing stuff for us. So this is who we're studying from. Master Shantideva. The text is poetry. So it's in these verses that in the original Sanskrit is like in a meter. And so also is in a meter in the Tibetan. But when you put it in meter, you have to do contractions. It gets so concise that it's hard to understand. So we need a commentary to flesh it out for us. So your reading will actually be the commentary that we're studying from the main text. And that commentary was written by someone named Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen, whose dates are 1364 to 1432. Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen is one of the two main disciples of our hero Jetsun whose dates are 1357 to 1419. This is the Gyaltsab of Gyaltsab and Kedrab we're probably familiar with. He wrote this commentary to guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. He titled it Gyaltse Jungok. There's that prenasal again. Gyaltse Jungok. Gyaltse means child of the Buddhas. The Jungok means the entry point. Entry point meaning like when you've got a river that you need to cross. And some places it's really wide and smooth, and other places it's narrow and dangerous, but there's rocks you can hop across. You go up and down the river looking for the safest, fastest way to get across. That's what Jungok means. So this is the commentary on the guide that's meant to help us understand the guide so that we can put it into practice in the way we would cross a river safely and effectively and quickly. Gyaltse Jungok. So technically that's what we're studying is Gyaltse Jungok. And in it is the text, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. All right. So all we have left for this class is to understand the outline of the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It's different chapters, the name of the chapters. When we make the shift from deciding our own distress and suffering is unacceptable to others' distress and suffering is just as unacceptable as our own. We make this shift from a path that would lead us to a state of our own freedom from mental afflictions to this heart-opening wish to become omniscient so that we can help everybody stop their mental afflictions, not just everybody human, but every mind stream, every alive, every conscious creature. The process, the behavior modification training that we then assign ourselves to is called the 6 perfections. Learning how to live according to these 6 main guidelines. And as we practice living according to those 6 behaviors. They're designed to help us imprint our minds with this goodness, that as that goodness is starting to come to fruition, it means our ability to meditate more deeply increases, and our intellectual understanding of what's meant by emptiness and karma increases, so that our practices of those 6 perfections get more subtle, so that our meditation gets deeper and our emptiness understanding gets higher. That cycle, that spiral, brings us sooner or later to the experience of the direct perception of emptiness, which is the experience we'll talk about later that makes this shift in our minds such that we're finally no longer perpetuating the misunderstanding, that rather we're burning it off. At that point, we continue to do those same behaviors, only now our mind is colored with the wisdom of why we're doing the behaviors. And now all of those behaviors are becoming the seed planting causes for our Buddhahood in the future. So this book, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, should be a book about how to live according to these 6 perfections. Right? The 6 perfections we know are the perfection of giving, the perfection of moral discipline, the perfection of not getting angry, the perfection of joyous effort, the perfection of meditation, and the perfection of wisdom. So we would expect that this book would have a chapter on each of those different perfections, and then more. So let's see if it does. So here is the list of its different chapters. The first chapter is the chapter called Changchub Ki Sem Ki Penyon. This term, Changchub Ki Sem. Changchub we met already. It means the Buddha mind. Ki Sem, Sem is the mind, the word for mind, but here it's used in the sense of the mind that's wishing. So Changchub Ki Sem is the wish to reach my Buddhahood. The wish to reach total Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings is called the Mahayana Bodhicitta, Mahayana wish. So here, Changchub Ki Sem means the developing our wish to reach Buddhahood. Penyon means the benefits. So the first chapter is on the benefits of growing our wish to reach total Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Like I did at the beginning of class, what are the benefits of coming to this class? There's a whole chapter on the benefits. Second chapter. Dikpa Shakpa. Dikpa Shakpa means to rip something out. It's in the language, it's an ugly kind of word. It has a sense of violence and violation, but it's used in the sense that the ugliness that we're wanting to rip out is the imprints in our minds that we've made by some kind of behavior towards an other, that when that ripens coming back at me, I won't like it. So big things and little things. That time I insulted my sister. That time I blamed the boss, and then said all those bad things about them. That time I didn't pay attention to the hungry dog, and the next day I saw them dead. I'm making up these things. I didn't do any of them that I'm aware of. But life, our reaction plant seeds, when those come back to me, they'll be unpleasant experiences. Once I realize, oh my gosh, I've got these imprints in me, like we have this visceral, can I vomit them out? Can I how can I rip them out of me? That's Dikpa Shakpa. Now you can't physically get in there and cut them out, but there are practices that we can do, that we can recognize them, we can apply our growing wisdom to them, we can grow our regret, we can do some kind of antidote that will damage them, even destroy them. And then as long as we don't repeat them, they can be done. Like we can wash our hands of those ugly seeds and not have to experience the result they would have given us if we had left them there to fester. That's Dikpa Shakpa. It's called purification. But do you see the word purification has other connotations than, egads, I've got to get this out of me. And that's what Dikpa Shakpa is. Purifying wrong deeds, purifying negative deeds. We purify in order to prepare ourselves to have a pure slate from which to plant new. We are planting new, but when we intentionally clean things up, our new planting can be more effective. So we're cleaning out the negative energies from the past. Third chapter. Changchub Kisem Sungwa. So we just learned Changchub Kisem means my wish to reach total Buddhahood for the sake of all others. Sungwa means how to acquire that wish, how to grow it. In this chapter, it will talk about the wish itself. And then when we're wanting to grow it, this tradition offers a formal ceremony where we declare ourselves before all the Buddhas and a stand-in for them that we're gonna develop that wish. And then we set about to do it. And then maybe later, once we've decided I really do want to act as a Bodhisattva, then we take a ceremony where we declare that we will follow certain guidelines of behavior to actually act like a Bodhisattva. So there's a ceremony called taking our Bodhisattva vows through which we do that. And this text talks about that, how the vows get conferred, how the ceremony works, etc. We've learned it from ACI 7. And here we see to some extent where that came from, that ceremony came from. All right. Fourth chapter, Bakyu Tempa. Please say Bakyu Tempa. Bakyu Tempa means learning to be careful. In the olden days, when a woman got married, she and her husband would go live with the husband's parents. And, it was probably an arranged marriage. And so she barely knows the parents. She barely knows the husband. And her job is to be able to fit into this new family without rocking the boat. So maybe she has her own way, right, of doing dishes and cleaning the house, but mother-in-law has her way. And so new bride needs to walk on eggshells. Do you know that term? Behave really carefully around the mother-in-law until she can figure out what makes mother-in-law happy and what upsets her, right? It's like guarding our behavior so carefully not to upset somebody else. Here, this chapter is about guarding our mind so carefully in order to be choosing our behaviors according to this new set of guidelines that we've decided I want to use to guide my life. We can make that determination. I want to use these new guidelines, but our habit is the old guidelines, okay? And our habit is stronger than our new decision. Until we shift the weight of the new habits, the old habits are still going to be primary. So this chapter is about how do we shift from the old way of being to the new way of being. It takes this really careful level of awareness for a while, a long while, actually. Guarding awareness, learning to be careful. Geshe-la called it, what we're learning to be careful is to guard this new fragile baby Bodhisattva mind. Like when we first decide I'm going to be a child of the Buddhas, it's like you are a newborn and we don't want to lose it. We want that Bodhisattva state of mind to stay strong. Next one, Bakyu Tempa, Sheishin Sungwa. Here it is. Sheishin Sungwa. Anybody recognize the word Sheishin from our meditation practices? Drampa and Sheishin are these two Sanskrit words. No, maybe they're not. No, they're Tibetan words about training ourselves to be able to stay on our object of meditation, Drampa. And Sheishin is this awareness that is checking for our level of dullness or agitation. It doesn't do anything but be highly aware and trigger a, oops, I'm not bright enough. Oops, I'm agitated. Oops. And then we fix it. So guarding awareness. Bakyu Tempo was learning to be careful. Sheishin Sungwa is learning to heighten our awareness of what we're careful about. So these two chapters go together. They're about our off-cushion behavior management process, these two. 6th chapter, Supa Tempa. Supa is the word for patience, sometimes translated forbearance. But those two words, Geshe-la says he finds them too vague, too broad, that what this chapter is about is training ourselves in the ability to not get angry in situations where we ordinarily would, in situations where everybody expects us to get angry. We just don't get angry. So it's not something we just turn on or turn off. At first, we turn our heightened awareness on the situation, my button's been pushed, I'm angry, I want to react in this way. And our heightened awareness of our new way of being is like, if I react like that, I just perpetuate everything. I'll do my best and stay like a bump on a log. Our success at that helps us in another time where our button gets pushed, the whole process starts up again. Our awareness is able to say, whoa, here's this sensation in my body that I'm calling anger, but you know what? It doesn't have to be anger. It's just a sensation. It's a powerful sensation. Maybe I can use it powerfully in this different way. And that's planting different seeds in response to the button getting pushed. We do that for a while. Button gets pushed again. Up comes the feeling. You turn the feeling towards something else. You respond completely differently. Eventually, button gets pushed, no problem. eventually you're in a similar situation and, oh my gosh, no button pushed at all. That's the not getting angry. Until then, we do the practices of getting angry and responding differently. That's all in this Supatempa. How to do that. Next chapter, Sundru Tempa. Sundru means joyful effort. So this chapter on joyful effort, the whole practice is about having a good time being a bodhisattva. As a bodhisattva, you will find yourself in unpleasant circumstances. And this practice is about having a good time responding as a bodhisattva, whether the circumstances are pleasant or not pleasant. And it's not a matter of willpower, it's a matter of understanding. And when we reach that understanding, that joyous effort just bubbles out. And it's not related to what's going on in our experience. Next chapter, Samten Tempa. Samten is one of those words for meditation. So this is the chapter on meditation. It's one of the 6 perfections. We ought to have a chapter on it. And we would expect it to be a chapter about, here's how you do meditation, here's how you sit, here's how you hold your mind. And we'll be surprised at what's in this chapter on concentration. 9th chapter is Sherab Kilyu. Sherab is one of those words that we use for wisdom. The wisdom of the fact that the object has no nature in it. The fact that how we perceive it is coming from the experience or karma, and emptiness, it's no nature in it. Sherab is this wisdom of that relationship. So the chapter on wisdom, it is written also in poetry, but it's so difficult that every translation I've seen, and like I have like 3 or 4 different translations, they all changed to prose for the 9th chapter, because you just can't, in English language at least, get the meaning across that the poetry gives. The chapter on wisdom, ACI course 12, the whole course is that one chapter and a little bit of chapter 10, because it's so rich and beautiful. Then the 10th chapter that not everybody even was able to hear is No Way Liu, the chapter on No Way, which is dedication. In the end, Master Shantideva says, and by the power of what I've just done, meaning having recited this whole text to that big crowd, may this happen and that happen and that happen. And it's a beautiful, beautiful chapter saying things like, by the power of the goodness I've just done, may rain fall in the hot hells and cool everything off for everybody. And everybody there, may they see Manjushri and fall in love with him. Right? And it's like, may, by the power of what I've just done, may there be beautiful swans in every lake. And may those swans bring food and drink to the beings around. It's so exquisite. And it's clues to what we will become as fully enlightened beings. It sounds like he's praying for that to happen someplace else to somebody else. But when we read the words carefully, we see that he's dedicating the goodness he just shared to him becoming all of these things. And as your Buddha, as your ability to fantasize it grows, it will take on these new meanings. And this chapter is a clue to how vast you will be as your Buddha you and Buddha paradise emanating. So here we have these chapters. The chapter on the benefits of growing our bodhicitta, which then we want to clean out all the yuck that's preventing us from growing it. And then we learn about how to formally cultivate it and declare ourselves to it. And then we learn how to guard it carefully, our new wish, and then how to apply our awareness to our behavior, and then how to apply all of that to our not acting from the anger until anger stops forever, and what it is to have a good time doing all of that, and how that affects our meditative concentration, and then how that all is designed to bring us to wisdom, growing intellectual to direct, and then how we give all that goodness away. Not like in the end, it's the end chapter, but technically as we're doing all of it, we're giving it away. Remember the helping somebody else plant tomatoes in order to get tomatoes. All right, so lastly for this class, the 6 perfections should be in this text. Can we find them? So remember what they are: perfection of giving, perfection of moral discipline, perfection of not getting angry, perfection of joyous effort, the perfection of concentration, and the perfection of wisdom. So some of them are easy, right? Chapter 9, the chapter on wisdom, there's the perfection of wisdom. Chapter 8, the chapter on meditation, although it isn't. Meditative concentration, perfection. Chapter 10, 9, 8, 7. Chapter on joyous effort, there it is. 6, chapter on not getting angry, there they are. So we've got moral discipline and giving. We don't have a chapter that says the chapter on moral discipline. And we don't have a chapter on the perfection of giving. So where are they? What do you think? These two, learning to be careful and guarding the awareness. What we are learning to be careful about is our behavior choices. And what we are guarding our awareness of is our reactions to our situations that we are choosing our behaviors about. So these 2 chapters, Bakyu Tempa and Sheishin Sumwa, are actually about our perfection of moral discipline. Because our moral discipline is our choice of actions towards our experiences. And we'll have a list of things that we habitually choose to do that we'll see, maybe I don't want to choose those anymore. Maybe I want to choose something different. So these 2 are the practice of moral discipline. But where's giving? Care to guess? I'll give you a clue. Yes, Frank.
I would say it's 2, huh? When I try to bring something for ripening, so I have to invest, maybe.
Good logic. Learning how to purify. It would be included. Anybody else? Yeah, I'll give you a clue. Yeah. See my cursor? He gives away his goodness at the end. But wait, perfection of giving is the first one. He should have had it at the first of his book. What was the matter with Master Shantideva? What's the highest thing you could give to somebody? The goodness of having shared the clue as to where their suffering comes from and where their Buddhahood could come from. Like, what else is there to give? Billions of triple berry pies, not even close. So he waits to show us the perfection of giving until the end, where he's giving away the goodness that he just did. It's called dedication. This tradition teaches when we plant a seed in our mind that we want to grow and keep, we dedicate it. And by dedicating it, it somehow protects it from being damaged by something we do that's ugly, that's like opposite of it. So as we're planting our seeds through our behaviors that are similar to each other, add to each other's seeds. Let me see. So suppose I give $1 to a homeless person, and then I've got that seed growing for it would ripen as my need being met in some way. And then another day, I don't know, I give some leftover food to a hungry dog. That adds to the seed of giving the $1 to the homeless person because they're similar. They both grow a bit. But suppose I also drive by another homeless person and I have the money and I'm stopped and I could give and I don't. That detracts a little bit from the one I had already planted. Not completely, but it lessens its power. So similar goodnesses add power to each other. Opposites detract from that power. Do you see how this system is working to be this constant shift? Why am I going there? I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Giving. So Master Shantideva has just taught this amazing teaching. He's shared the clue. He's seen himself do it. So he's got these extraordinary seeds. If he takes those seeds and dedicates them to these extraordinary results, those seeds somehow, I don't understand exactly how, those seeds become impermeable to him saying something nasty to somebody later, detracting from them. Does that make sense? I don't exactly understand the process, but dedicating protects our goodness seeds, protects any seed from being damaged by its opposite. So he takes the highest thing that he has to give and gives it at the end of his teaching instead of giving it at the beginning. And it shows us that this living according to the 6 perfections is not a linear thing. We don't sign up as bodhisattvas and then work on our perfection of giving and finish it and then go on to moral discipline. We're growing our giving ability. And in doing so, we're better able to grow our moral discipline ability. And that's better able to grow our not getting angry. They go together in this beautiful spiral. And he's showing us that by teaching us about giving without ever mentioning it, by demonstrating that he gives away the goodness of what he's done at the end of the chapter to show us how our giving will start in small ways and grow into this big way as well. Okay, right on time. So, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Your mission in life, should you accept it, is to learn how to transform yourself from suffering human being into totally enlightened being, made of love, made of compassion, made of wisdom. We are all capable of that and meant to become that. And will become that sooner or later. You know, why not work on it? So remember that person that we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. We've learned stuff that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way someday. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being who's there with you. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you and help you and inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom, it's there for you. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use 3 long exhales. The first, share this goodness with that one person. The second, share it with everyone you love. The third, share it with every existing being everywhere. See that goodness on your breath, filling them with loving kindness. And may it be so. Okay. Thank you very much. Please do your homeworks and quiz. If you do your homeworks and quiz on paper, just show them to me on your camera at the beginning of next class. If you do them electronic, you know, take a picture or send, and I don't read them word for word, but I look at them and I rejoice in the completion. So even if you're doing them in your own language and I can't read it, let me see it anyway, okay? So that we can have this completion karma together. All right, got it?
Thank
Thank you
you.
again for the
Thank you.
opportunity. I will see you Friday morning,
Thank you, teacher.
my Friday
Thank
morning.
you.
Okay,
Thank you. Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
A
Have a nice
pleasure.
time.
What do I do? And stop recording. Stop recording. You sure you want to stop? Yes, I want to.